Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Monday morning meditation. I'm obviously still trying to get ready this morning. So glad to have you all here on this wonderful Independence Day week. We are celebrating in our country freedom from the rule of a monarchy, right? And just freedom at all sorts of levels. And so, of course, we are going to take that into our meditation time this morning. And my spiritual teacher, Jane Elizabeth Hart, Center for Enlightenment, has said before, our work on our spiritual journey is to dethrone the ego. It is to take the mind that takes us in all sorts of directions, not having any cohesiveness a lot of the time. One time we're on this side of a situation or an opinion, and then 5 minutes later we're on the other side. We're trying to make a decision, and we have all the, what's and wherefores on this side and all of them on the other side, and our mind will take us back and forth. Our mind will put us into anger and then into happiness and then back into another opposite. It just takes us back and forth all the time. And as we learn to watch what's going on in our heads, we see that that is actually very much the case. But until we're conscious that that's happening on the inside of our minds, it just takes us on a ride 24/7. So our dethroning the ego is about being present and understanding what's going on in the mind, but not following it just because it goes through our head, just because a thought goes through our head, just because a feeling goes through our head doesn't make it true or valid or anything we need to pay any attention to. I've talked with many people over the years in my work who get worried because they have a violent thought that comes through their mind, or they'll feel really aggressive towards a person and then say, that's just goes through my mind. I would never act on that, but that's what goes through our mind. And that's, very normal, very normal. But it's a good example of how just because it goes through our heads doesn't mean it's true or valid. So in our meditation time, we practice freeing our mind from the rule of those thoughts that have come from our conditioning, come from our training in life, come from our upbringing. They've been thoughts and emotions have been stored there for a very long time, and they come to the surface just because that's the way our brains work. It's like it's always perpetually going through the trunk and the storage, and it's like I see this little creature bent over, just kind of flinging things out of the trunk, like, oh, here we go, here's one. And that's what our mind does with everything that has been stored in our personal experience of life. And we all have different things coming out of that trunk because we all have different training in our lives. So, some people have got clothes coming out of there. Some people have trinkets, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's all the mind does is it goes like this. And it's like, oh, here's a problem to solve. Let me look in my trunk. And it just starts throwing things around like, okay, well, that happened to me one time when I was 7, and here's what I did at that time and seemed to work. So let's try it again. And there's no rhyme or reason to how we're solving our problems. We're bringing our emotions from the trunk. We're bringing our emotions from that storage from the past onto a present situation. All sorts of ways our minds work without working well. And our job, our presence, our consciousness, our awareness is about seeing what's coming out of that trunk and going, that one's not going to work. Or I know this isn't going to work, but for some reason I've got a lot of emotion around it. So it's time for more processing on that one. So we process it a little bit more, or, whatever the case may be, that it's our job to discern, nope, that is not gonna rule today. That pair of trunks that came out of the trunk is not going to rule today. I'm going to make a different decision. I'm going to watch. I'm not going to make a decision at all, but I'm not going to do that. All those different ways as we're watching our thinking come up. We practice this during our meditation time, but we can watch it all day long. Watch those thoughts come up, watch those feelings come up and go, oh, wow, that's interesting that I thought that. That deserves some more explanation. Or that's interesting that that emotion came up. I wonder if I follow the string of that emotion, where does that lead? That maybe needs some healing, needs some forgiveness, needs some journaling, needs some extra attention so that I can let it go. And it doesn't have to be in my trunk anymore. Let's clear this stuff out. Because otherwise it just gets packed back in that trunk and then gets thrown out the next time something comes up. So we want to be conscious and present. So today we're just going to practice watching those thoughts come out of the trunk and staying in our center of awareness. And I'm getting over a cold, so I may mute myself a few times if I need to cough. So my apologies in advance. But in the meantime, let's just sit back and relax in the space we're sitting in. Taking a couple of deep breaths to let our mind-body system know that it's time to be still, time to melt into the chair, into the place we are. You just breathe in. Just as we breathe out, we just let everything go. Breathe in together, breathe out everything else. And as we let our breathing return to a natural rate, let's make sure that it's coming from the belly versus the lungs, chest. Maybe at first it feels a little awkward. That's okay, because the body will follow. The body will find its rhythm. Just breathe in naturally. Breathe out naturally. Feeling it moving from the work of the diaphragm, causing our bellies to expand and contract as we breathe in and out. When your breath feels like it's moving in and out just on its own, it may take a few minutes. It's okay. When you feel it being able to do it on its own, just let it go. Then find in your body right now a place that feels like your center. The center is calm, grounded. It's a place where you can rest your attention. It is calm and still. So even if you feel the humming of your body or the thoughts moving quickly in your mind, center is a place where you can just be the observer of the center is a place where we know we don't have to follow those thoughts. We know we don't have to pay over attention to those body sensations. We can just notice them, but stay here, right here in our center. Right here in our center. We don't have to think about the past. We don't have to worry about the future. We can just be. Right here in our center, we are free from the pushing and pulling of the mind. We are free from having to figure things out, problem solve. Anything that needs our attention like that will be there when we're done. Perhaps you can feel the spaciousness of that freedom. In the mind lives judgments, and the mind lives criticism. So we don't have to pay any attention to that. We're free and we feel that freedom. Maybe it feels a little rebellious because we've been so used to answering to that critical voice in our heads. Here we can just be. What the founding fathers knew is that the people in the colonies were more than capable of having their own country, their own government. And likewise, we are confident in this center that we can live, move, grow without the critical voice having to tell us every move to make. We are capable. We don't need it. It's been oppressive. And now is the hour to let it go. We have the wisdom of our experience. We don't need to bring along that critique of it. Instead of grabbing things from that trunk of storage, we tap into the wisdom of this aware space within us. We don't need to be hard on ourselves to do what is hard to do. You don't need to be threatened with fear of the outcome or fear of something happening. Guilt, or any of the other things that can come out of that trunk. Just don't need it. We know what's right. We know what's wise. And we know our hearts. And we are free. In the center, we feel healing energy of love, compassion, peace. In the center, reclaim this sovereignty, freedom from the rule of the mind. We take this freedom into our day, into our celebration on Independence Day. We are free to live from the wisdom of our hearts, the wisdom of our experience. And we no longer have to be subject to the criticism in our heads, and when it comes up, which it will, just say, no, you're not in charge anymore. And we practice with that day after day until it's all off our land. If you can keep meditating today with this peace within, I invite you to do so. If you need to go about your day, take a couple of deep breaths. Just switch gears and feel your body in your chair. Taking this freedom in your heart with you. Today, throughout the celebrations tomorrow, and throughout the week ahead and beyond. Thank you for being here today and sharing this time. I appreciate your presence, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful week practicing coming from that freedom within. Bye for now.